All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this last. Let me share the screen. For this last of our VATI 2021 project webinars. This is the 16th webinar. We've been doing this for 16 months, kind of hard to believe. And this is obviously delayed from last month. And we will get right to the reason for that delay in just a second, as soon as I find my controls, which decided to hide themselves when I did that. There we go. Quick run through of our agenda. We're going to once again welcome everybody on this call. We're going to talk about the project, DHCD's role, our role, Brightspeed's role, and then we're going to get right to the discussion about the pricing adjustment and the Q&A, which were the reason why we delayed this call last week. And we will then move into discussion about the completion of the project, updates on the project areas, and then ordering and installation rundown. So that way we've got that as up to date as possible, and then end with an additional Q&A session for anybody that has additional questions. Q&A, the way it works, if you just shake your mouse, you're going to see a bar pop up. It might already be up, and you just click on that, as I'm going to do right now, so that way I can see questions as they come in. And there is a space for you to ask questions. We ask in general terms, we ask that if you have a very particular question about your installation, your property, your location, then please email us, baao@albemarle.org, for your individual things. Don't put your address, your phone number, or anything in the Q&A. This is public, and this will be shared online. And so if you have a question that's generalizable, something about the project in general, absolutely throw those in there. If you've got a question about your particular installation, your particular issue, email us. And what are we here to talk about? We're here to talk about the VATI 2021 project. VATI is the Virginia Telecommunications Initiative. It was set up by the Department of Housing and Community Development's Broadband Office as a means of funding publicly funded broadband expansion projects. The first ones were rolled out in 2017. Albemarle County has been a recipient every single year that these grants have been available. And that's why we're going to be able to reach universal access of broadband in Albemarle County by 2025, which is something we're really, really thrilled about. This does require a partnership between a public body and a private service. In this case, the public body is actually the Albemarle Broadband Authority. They are a public body of 6 members, 2 community members, 2 staff members, and 2 Board of Supervisors members who meet monthly. We can share the times for those meetings. The next one is actually Tuesday, March 21st, which is off our usual cycle to accommodate a budget meeting. But normally it is Mike, is that third Wednesday?
Yeah, it's the fourth Wednesday.
Fourth Wednesday.
At 5 o'clock.
Fourth Wednesday. And you can.
But Jason's right. March 21st, because of a budget meeting, will be off our schedule. But that's Tuesday at 5 o'clock in room 241. So thanks for bringing that up, Jason. Important update. Yep.
Absolutely. And those recordings, along with recordings for all of the prior webinars, are available on the Albemarle County YouTube page. And our role, we are the Broadband Accessibility and Affordability Office. We are the administrators. So we're the staff for the Albemarle Broadband Authority. This project, which was originally conceived in late spring, early summer of 2020, kind of right in the midst of it all, calls for $2.3 million of state funding towards a partnership with Brightspeed, formerly CenturyLink, for 10 project areas involving 1,600 new passings. I mentioned last time, and I'm bringing it up again for a reason we'll get to later, that this project started very differently than how it ended up, because right as the awards had been handed out and announced in December, just a few months later, the federal government issued awards on a different program called the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. That's RDOF is the shorthand we use, RDOF. And that resulted in an overlap. Federal funds were going towards areas that the state had previously designated for this grant, which meant that the entire project had to be rescoped. So basically went back to the drawing boards, took out all of the RDOF areas, made sure that the project was still something that was going to be workable. And that's part of the reason why here in 2023, we're still talking about the 2021 project, is that it also created a delay in going under contract and starting construction. So all of that administrative stuff aside, our office serves as the public liaison for this project, bringing resident concerns to Brightspeed, ABBA, and DHCD. Whenever you have any questions, any concerns, you are always welcome to reach out to us, baao@albemarle.org. We want to emphasize, we're not merely an intermediary. Our job is to get people answers and to advocate for residents. So with that in mind, a week ago yesterday, I was actually out of town, and we got updated slides, which included the slide that you guys previously saw. We immediately had a lot of questions. Mike actually jumped on a response faster than I could, where we asked a lot of different questions that I'm sure mirror the questions that you all have. And at the time, Brightspeed didn't have a clear response. There wasn't a lot of clarity. And so we asked, one, that the price increase be delayed until after this project is completed, and to give enough time to have discussions about the way that this should impact this project. We're actually going to ask that again. And the other thing that we asked is that they make themselves available, Brightspeed make themselves available for the webinar a week after, because we wanted to make sure that we had time to have answers before we host a webinar. So that way we don't have to do this again. Instead, this can be the one. So with that in mind, they were amenable, and they did get us some answers, which we included a portion of in the email that you all received about this webinar. This is the pricing plan that they rolled out. And so I would like to now just kick it over to Rich Schulman to discuss sort of the nature of these price increases and the plan behind it and how Brightspeed expects it to impact residents in the VATI project.
Thanks, Jason. Jason, I'm actually going to turn over to Nancy, who's also a member of my team that's on the marketing side. And Nancy's going to kind of take us through changes, the good, the bad, the ugly on the pricing.
Thanks, Rich. So really the point of the changes to our rates is to offer a lower entry price point with a simplified plan. So as you can see, the 200 meg, if you compare to previous price plans, is actually lower because there's no additional fees for leasing equipment. So our 200 meg is actually a lower price than it was in the past. Again, we're trying to be a more transparent marketer. So fiber customers can enter, the fiber or the fiber internet service with a lower price point. The 500 meg is a new, so we recognize that more choices are better for everyone. You can have more options to meet your needs. Also, with the 500 meg, the equipment is included. And then the new price for our 940 meg is 100, and that also includes the equipment.
I guess I'll start with questions. In general, how will this impact residents in the VATI projects, in particular in the areas that have not launched?
At the time you place your order, these will be the choices that you'll see. The new rates are in effect now. So as orders are being placed now, you'll see this. If you've already placed your order, you're already in service. Our existing customers will maintain the current rates unless they make any changes.
A question from the audience: what were the old rates previously? There was sorry, I'll just handle this one. There was a believe $50 a month plan at 200 megabits per second, but it included a modem charge for those that needed to rent a modem. which was, I believe, $15, which actually brought the 200 meg plan to a price that was the same as the 940 meg plan, because the 940 meg plan was $65, but it included the modem. And we'd made that request previously, that you guys eliminate the modem charge for the 200 meg plan. The
previous price for the 200 was 49, and then the lease was 15, so it put it at $64.
Yeah. We will get to the distinction between those that haven't placed their orders and those that had already placed their orders in a second. But another question: how long will the old rates be valid for those that are already signed up?
We're not planning any rate increases at this time.
Not a great answer, but I guess those same prices, our goal with the Broadband Authority, and I have this with the director or the chair of the Broadband Authority, is to convince Brightspeed that the same pricing that was available in neighborhoods early on, specifically because we were targeting to finish the entire project by the end of December. And since the delays happened, it seems logical that all of the pricing that's been available and will continue for people who were fortunate enough to sign up during 2022, that same pricing schedule should apply to anyone who signs up within a VATI project area in 2023. And those prices should hold for a specific amount of time. And if there's a price increase or a price change, that price change should be announced first off. I mean, we weren't informed as a VATI project, a state-run project, with funding still not released for Brightspeed on this project. It just seems like it's a unfortunate and scary consideration that at any time, any of our existing customers or community members can suddenly see this happen, so their budgeting will have to change, or they'll have to switch to a lower cost program, which is valid, which could be a choice. But I'd really like to hear from Rich on any effort on the corporate management side to look at this particular situation as something that's available or should be done for the county of Albemarle and the state of Virginia, frankly, because it is, the Commonwealth is involved with this. So
sure. So I guess since you've asked me specifically,
sorry, Rich, I had to put you on a spot.
I don't mind. I use this example, and I don't mean to sound cute, but I say I'm like the guy at McDonald's that's flipping the burgers, and I can't tell you why the cost of the burgers went up, but I'm flipping the burgers. Now I can tell you, and I have told you, some avenues that you all can take advantage of that I would recommend, that to make your point, and I get it completely. So I've been trying to do everything that I possibly can to help you all get to the folks that can make the decisions on that. And but at my pay grade, I'm not the one that makes those decisions. And I think I knew about this price increase probably 10 minutes before you did. And it took me 10 minutes to kind of read it, understand it, see what was going on before I immediately sent it to you all to say, hey, look, this is what I have just seen as well. So, there was no notice that was given out. The other thing, of course, and I think Nancy mentioned this, it was a nationwide pricing. So nobody is looking and saying, oh, look at Albemarle, we can do this, we can do that. This was done nationwide. There are probably hundreds of projects that are going on in the 20 Brightspeed states that are at various levels of completion or not completion or just getting started. And they all applied equally to all of those projects.
I think that the challenge here is the fact that, and I don't think it was addressed in your response. was special consideration taken to exempt VATI customers from the pricing based on the fact that had Brightspeed met its target of December 5th for this project, then all VATI customers would have been included in the original pricing for whatever amount of time you guys were willing to support that pricing. So was there consideration given, and if not, can it be given now?
You all could certainly ask for that. In fact, I might even encourage you to ask for that.
I believe we have.
Yeah, we did. That was the official memo that went to Bill Hanchy.
Yeah. So when you're asking, can there be, I would say, that's up to you guys as to what you've done. It sounds like you have done it. If you want to go further than that, you are certainly more than welcome to do that.
Okay.
And I might encourage you to do that.
And let's to the similar point, but taking a slightly different perspective. Our goal is success for this project. There are certain metrics that the Department of Housing and Community Development Broadband Office has established. One of those is to meet a 50% take rate on this project. It is publicly available on ABA meetings that this project hasn't yet crested 50%. It has crested 50% in some project areas, but is not that isn't the case for any of the more recent or larger project areas as of yet, as we're aware. And we're concerned that the increase in cost, the approach that was taken, might have an impact on adoption, which would be detrimental to the success of the project. As the Department of Housing and Community Development does have options for actions that it can take in the event of a project that doesn't meet the contracted speeds. We have a number of questions that basically amount to, why should I switch to fiber when my DSL is currently enough for me, and this is a significant cost. So I'd like to ask two separate questions on there. One, do you understand how this can be perceived as a bait and switch approach? So that's the first question. The second question is, what is the argument for making the switch from fiber to DSL if cost is a concern and the current product is sufficient for the user?
Yeah, so addressing your first one, I mean, I don't understand or see where the bait and switch is, but I think it's connected to the second question, which is, why would you want to switch? So a couple of thoughts there as I think about it. So I've had fiber. I know some of you already have fiber from other providers. I think the question said somebody had it from Ting, and reading the question here, it says it was rated at 1 gig, but never realized more than a modest fraction of that. And I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I don't think you're seeing modest fractions for any, and I know we've got people that currently have the service that are on this webinar right now. I used to be a lawyer, so one of the laws of a lawyer is you never ask a question that you already don't know the answer to. But I'm going to break that rule, and if there's somebody that's on this webinar, and I know there's a few that are on the system currently, I'd be really interested to know what your speed tests are looking like, both on the upstream and the downstream. But I don't think you're seeing fractionals of 1 gig. Maybe you're at 600. Maybe you're I don't know. We'd have to look and see what those numbers are. But again, you're not going to see speeds like you're seeing on DSL, especially on the upload side. And I know for a lot of folks are saying, why do I really care about the upload side? But depending on what you're doing in your home, and I know the names that are on this list, and I know there's some folks here that are on right now that do a lot of business work on their network, and the upstream speeds are really important to them. So if upstream speeds are really important to you, that's one of the big advantages of the fiber, is that those speeds are both up and down. The other thing is, I hate to say this, but for those of you that have been on DSL, I'm hoping you know that, and that is your speed depends on your distance from the device, and it fades off quickly as you get towards the end. So once you get to about 3 miles out from our device, you know, you're in like the 1.5 meg range. So for those folks that are really close to the device, they've got really nice fast DSL speeds. But for the others that are further down, your speeds are getting slower and slower. And we don't have pricing that's, you know, if you're only a 1.5 meg customer, you're going to pay X amount. And if you're 2 and you're 5 and you're 8 and you're 10, you pay different amounts. You know, I think our current plan, and don't hold me to this, I'd have to go back and look, but if it's 20 meg for X number of dollars, it's up to 20 meg. So if you're a 1.5, you're still paying the same rate as your neighbor who's 2 miles closer to the device and is getting, you know, 20 meg kinds of speeds. For this one particular customer, really interesting question. If they've got HD streaming, multiple simultaneous Zoom calls, and 20 meg of bandwidth, that's a good question whether you would need more than, you know, your question is, do you need more than 20 meg of bandwidth? My personal situation here, I'm in Verizon Fios here in the western part of outside of Richmond, and I use my Wi-Fi network for everything, and so I'm at 500 meg, and I do everything. I say 500. I'm at 400 meg because I'm at the limits of my Wi-Fi speed, and I don't know why I'm paying for a gig speed, to be honest with you, because I'm not directly connected anywhere in my home to that fiber network. Now, having said all that, you know, I've been in this business for 25 years. I can remember coming to see folks, telling them we were getting them off dial-up and they were going to 1.5, and they would say to me, if you can get me 1.5 and get me off dial-up, I'll never ask you for anything faster than that because that's all I need. Well, then it was 1.5, then it was 10, then it was 100. And you know, the way things are going, that bandwidth, I think, is just going to get more and more important as new apps come out, new things move to streaming. And, you know, I mean, it's pretty obvious for me from somebody that's around as long as I have that the requirements is just going to increase and increase. Now, you may say then, well, what, you know, so you need to figure out what you've got, and then you need to look at the pricing and figure out what works best for you. I mean, if I had to guess, my guess is that probably that 200 meg speed if it's at $60 is probably, and I don't know, that may actually be around the same price as the DSL speeds that we're currently charging. And if that's the case, why not move to the 200 where you've got at least the better upload speeds as well. So anyway, that's kind of,
can I just,
yeah, and Nancy, go ahead.
Can I just jump in here too? So the question, why go to fiber? Fiber is a better product. There's less degradation on the signal. You do get the same, as Rich said, the same upload and download speeds. You know, it's a product that will grow as our internet needs grow, as your internet needs in your house grow. So you can connect more devices. I think it's just a product that is more reliable. It's a scalable product. And as we know, the copper network just doesn't provide the same reliability as a fiber optic network does.
I appreciate that from both of you. I think that there's still concern, and we will voice this for our office. There is concern that this is going to have a negative impact on the take rate, and that more people are going to elect to not move to fiber based on cost increases. I think the explanation for why there was, as described, an effective decrease in the cost of the lower plan was good. However, one question asking to elaborate further on the explanation for why the increase on the 940 meg plan.
Well,
go ahead, Rich.
I was going to say, let Nancy go into the details, but I mean, I guess here's the way I would look at it. The prices that we have had in place are the prices that, I'm trying to remember what the contract date was that we did all this back in 2020, was it? 21. So, I mean, I guess I'd ask you, how many folks believe that the prices of anything have gone down since then? You know, unfortunately, as we've seen, if you've had any work done, if you've had construction done, if you've had anything done, the price of just about everything has gone up over the last 2 years. I mean, I'll give you just one example of that. So, you know, we hired new crews in to come in and bury lines. The price to do that has doubled to us. And it's because that's what the market would bear for the folks that do that kind of work. So we're paying, and believe me, the people that were under the current contract were grumbling because they see that in order to bring on those new crews, they're making twice as much as we're paying the old crews. A lot of it is workforce. A lot of it is materials availability. We're now fighting against all of the other providers out there that are building these networks for all things from cabinets to switches to the fiber optics. In the last 2 years have increased in price dramatically. And again, I'd say if any of you have done any home construction work and you've had to buy materials or had to pay for labor, you've seen the same thing. So it's not as if things have been stable for the last 2 years and prices are increasing just because they can. You know, they're part of that pricing question is, you know, what are the costs for us to do business? So that's about the best I can do for you there.
All right. I will say in terms of market pricing, pricing for fiber broadband service has a big range depending on a lot of different factors. $100 for the near gigabit speeds isn't out of line with general market trends, but the same could have been said for the $65 tier. We've got a question regarding pricing and customers that already have plans in place. The questions, does your contract, so that's the customer contract, the customer agreement, lock in rates for any period of time, or is there sort of nothing to hold you guys to that pricing? And then from Ms. Rowland, is there a way to switch between plans at the point where the price increases do come in?
There's nothing that locks in prices. We don't have any annual contracts, so you're not locked into a 2-year term. Your rates aren't going to increase after 13 months or 25 months. The rate is just as we have it. What was the rest of the question? Say that again.
Is there a way to change between plans, or are the customers locked into a specific plan once the prices go up?
You can change between plans. That's, you just need to call into our center. There may be an order charge to make changes, but whatever rate is available at the time that you call in or plans are what you're going to have to choose from.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is be careful, because I think that question came from somebody that's a current customer that's already online under the current plan. So if you're under the current plan at $65 and you call and you want to change your plan, I mean, I guess if you wanted to go to the 200 and save yourself $5 a month, maybe that would work. But I can't imagine you're going to want to mess around with your plans and go to a higher rate for the same or slower speeds. Does that make? Hopefully that makes sense.
I'm thinking more at the pricing. The current pricing. Will there be notification given so that a person can budget so that they can change the plan without? You see, I think that's the challenge with this.
We don't have any intention of changing existing customers, but if you are on a 940 rate today at the $65 and you call in to change,
you wouldn't do
say
that
you want to go to 500, you would go to $80.
Right.
Maybe the question is, maybe this is it. Maybe the question is, if your current pricing somehow changes later on, can you call and opt into the new pricing and maybe a slower speed? And the answer would be yes there, so
Yeah.
if
We
you're at
don't
the
want that
940
to
now,
happen. Certainly, we don't want that to happen, but
yeah.
now
yeah.
with this, all bets are off, unfortunately.
Well,
Well,
and
I think
just-
that it gets to the point that, and I'll reiterate this, we've asked and are asking that this be delayed in general for VATI customers. Numerous questions keep coming in regarding the unfairness of having customers who just happen to be at the end of the project area, the largest portions of the project area, being charged more. And while I understand that it was not a consideration to charge those specific customers more, it is the impact. And so we would ask special consideration for the entire VATI project area, that any price increases for new orders or old orders be delayed, frankly, for quite some time, because making sure that everybody hears about this project. We're still hearing from people that did not know that this project existed. Brightspeed hasn't done much to market this project, which is one of the reasons why in the prior project areas, the first 750 passings, were not at 50% take rate. And so a marketing effort now would certainly pay dividends for Brightspeed, but at the cost of customers who had previously just not been aware of the project and weren't able to take advantage of the preferential pricing for being earlier in this project. So I'll reiterate that. And then there's some questions regarding the actual inclusion. So what is included in the equipment that is included for these new pricing tiers?
That includes the modem with the Wi-Fi equipment. So you will connect to the Wi-Fi with the modem that's provided.
So does that mean that there's no longer any discount for having and bringing your own devices?
Right.
So customers who have their own devices effectively pay more than they would have before, in addition to the increase in cost for the plans.
Well, they wouldn't pay more. They're just going to pay the 180 or the 60. Yeah, there's no discount for bringing your own equipment. I don't believe we had discounts for bringing your own equipment previously.
Well, but in the lower tier plan, you would get charged.
Oh, okay.
You would avoid the modem fee if
yeah.
you and that was our general recommendation, is that if people were planning on paying for the lower tier plan, that they should purchase their own Wi-Fi equipment, because it's it is, there's not a lack of compatibility there between standard Wi-Fi equipment and the equipment that would be leased through you guys. And then there was an ownership and a discount included, but that's no longer the case. So somebody that has their own equipment in place, they're not going to see a discount on the $60 a month for the 200 meg plan.
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead, Rich.
I just want to mention on the two things. One is for, and I'm trying to figure out how to say this the best way, but there is nothing that keeps customers from contacting Brightspeed at the higher level, at the highest levels, and asking the questions that you're asking. And at the same time, for the folks that are on the call, and if you're watching this later on, Mike and Jason with their organization have been pushing really, really hard on this topic up the chain as well. So, I mean, they're to be commended for their work trying to push on this. Anyway, so if there are additional things that they can do to push along, you can certainly do that as well. I've done everything that I can do to influence that. Again, Jason, you asked the question earlier on, was there a consideration to this project and what this did? And I don't know the answer to that, but I'm pretty sure that the answer was this change was made across all projects in all 20 states, whether it's a Brightspeed project with our own capital, whether it was a public-private partnership. So, I would think that decision was made overall, and I don't know whether anybody looked at any specific instance and asked that question. The other piece to that is we're going to be watching, as I'm sure you will, and the state will as well, what the take rate looks like here as we launch these new project areas to see that. And we'll be watching that real closely, because we all know that, we have that target of the 50% take rate. So will be, that gives us further inputs. If, somehow we're at a much lower percentage, then we all know that we're going to have to do some things to fix that percentage, and somebody's going to have to make some hard decisions on what we do at that point.
I appreciate that. Another question regarding changes. Will new orders also see any changes to the cost for drops? There has been, I can say, some activity in terms of people receiving charges for drops that previously had not. We've seen some variability in the way that that approach was made. I'm gonna review for everybody on the call. There should be no charges for your drop without your discussing it with the installation tech. So we're going to get into the marketing, and I do want us to cover that. We're already a half hour into the call. I want to make sure that we have time for that. On your installation day, so you're going to place your order, you're going to pick an installation day, and installation tech is going to come out to your house. They're going to review what your installation is going to look like. And if there are going to be any costs associated with that, they should leave you with a quote. They should leave you with an explanation of what the charges are going to be to provide you service. And if they don't, and then you receive a charge in the future, feel free to reach out to us and reach out to Brightspeed to clarify why that happened. The installation tech should not be leaving without explaining to you what the charges are going to be for your installation. The prior guidance is that Brightspeed would provide up to $1,500 of cost towards your installation. The contractual requirement is that no costs would be incurred until 650 feet. And then correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, there is a specific cost for additional linear feet.
It's not a specific cost.
Nope.
There was
Okay.
estimate cost.
But so the question is still out there. Are there going to be any changes to the way that Brightspeed approaches charges regarding newly placed orders?
So let me take the first stab at that one. So in the other 19 states where Brightspeed operates, the way that we determine the cost for a drop is we account for $1,500 that we cover up front. And if it's more than $1,500, then we charge the customer. For whatever reason, and I wasn't involved in the negotiations here, we agreed on something different, and that is up to 650 feet gets covered as part of the drop cost, and you don't pay anything. So where that plays in is you say, well, if we've got to cross 3 driveways and 2 creeks in that 650 feet, the cost to do that's going to be $5,000-$10,000. You don't pay anything because it's 650 feet. If it's once you get past 650 feet, is the tech going to come out there with a wheel and measure off 650 and say, you're at 700, we're going to charge you for that extra 50 feet? I don't know. I haven't heard of that happening. But if after the 650 feet, there's still 2 creeks to cross, that's going to mean boring under each of those, and that's going to be additional costs. And as Jason said, we probably will not do any work on that day until we get your approval and you pay, and I think it all can be done online for that additional beyond the 650 feet. Now, there is a question, and I don't know the answer to this, but it's how long does that 650 feet connection last? If you decide 2 years from now, hey, I want to get fiber, I can probably tell you that nobody's going to say to you, 650 feet is free. We'll probably at that point be using the normal procedures. And I have not been able to figure out the contract yet to understand where that magic date is where things switch. Having said that, I think the best guidance that I could give you is, as soon as a project launches and you decide you're going to want to order, go ahead and get your order in so that we're absolutely sure that you're under that free 650 feet of cable, and you're not in a situation a year or 2 from now where it might be different. To be honest with you, our techs on the ground think that the $1,500 is usually a better deal than the 650 feet, but that all changes if you've got driveways and creeks and things like that where we've got to do complicated bores or things to and the cost could vary widely there. So again, you know, when we launch, get your order in, you're included in that 650 feet. Some point down the road, I don't think that applies anymore. I can't tell you when that is by looking at the contract, but all the more incentive to do it quickly.
A couple of questions about DSL. As we already discussed, there's some people that are concerned that the DSL plan might be the one that they are going to choose, which is going to have an impact on our take rate for the project overall. And to that effect, the questions that are coming in are asking whether Brightspeed has plans to discontinue DSL service or whether residents can expect to keep that service.
So there are no plans that I know of to stop DSL. We still have a lot of customers on DSL. Here's one thing I will warn you though. As the demands for bandwidth continue to increase, and that's all that's going to happen is they're going to continue to increase. We are managing the bandwidth for the folks that are currently on the network. What that means is your neighbor who moves in, builds a new house, and they're in between two houses that have DSL, it's quite likely that that new home will not be able to get DSL from us because we're not going to take that person's money and then give everybody else a poorer DSL experience. Because to be frank with you, the system is being pushed to the limit now in a lot of places where we call it bandwidth exhaust. We're not adding any new customers. Also, to add something onto that, and this is maybe actually a bigger consideration as I think about it, why you might want to make the switch to fiber. You sell your house, the new owner of the house moves in. They see your DSL router that you left sitting there. They call us to hook it up, and we say, "Sorry, we're not providing the service." And say, "Wait a minute, I don't understand that. There's a modem right here. You were providing service a month ago to this customer." And it might be if we're at bandwidth exhaust that we are not going to be able to connect that customer with DSL because, again, we don't want the bandwidth constraints are getting so tight that we don't want to add that new customer on there. So, you know, I'm not a realtor, and I didn't sleep at Holiday Inn last night, but I can tell you that probably not a bad idea to connect up the fiber so that you've got that cutting edge technology for if you decide to sell your place to the next person and they're not stuck with not being able to connect with a DSL connection.
You know, I think we need to remind everyone that fiber is the leading technology. It is a motivating factor for consumers. We know that developers request fiber in their developments. It is by far a better product than copper DSL. And I think we should really reiterate that we made changes to the price to be a more transparent marketer. We really feel that the 200 meg lower speed entry point is a very good price. It's a very good option. It does not include a lease fee. Again, there's no contracts. It's unlimited data. If you're concerned about, switching to fiber and you're not sure what it will do for you, then that lower entry price point is probably a good plan for you. That is a perfect for households that even if you want to connect up to 10 devices at once, that speed will work for you. You can stream. And again, it is symmetrical. The downloads and the upload speeds are the same also.
Thanks for that. A couple more questions and I'm going to tackle them myself. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask here and answer some of these by text. So we see some questions and I'm going to try to click through as many of them as I can. If we don't get to your questions, understand that there have already been over 70 questions asked on this webinar. So my apologies. We've seen a lot of people ask about regulatory impact. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about this specific agreement. There is one body that regulates, there are two bodies that regulate telecommunications in the United States of this type. The Federal Communication Commission regulates some aspects of it, and the Federal Trade Commission regulates some aspects of it. At no point in the present or past configurations of either the FCC or the FTC have broadband pricing limitations or regulations been in effect. There have been discussions to that effect, and there have been lots of opportunities for people to point to that as an option. But at no point has the FCC or FTC ever acted to enforce any pricing scheme or pricing regulation. Second, it's kind of next down the ladder. At the state level, there is no agency that is actually has authority over broadband telecommunications infrastructure in the Commonwealth of Virginia. At best, the State Corporation Commission has regulatory authority over telephony. So that means that your copper telephone line outside, they have regulatory control over that. But even there, I don't believe that there is a pricing mechanism included in that. Our ability to influence this is limited by the agreements that our partners. So whenever you have a public-private partnership, you're taking a public body and you're putting it right alongside a private body, and you're sitting down at a table and coming to an agreement. The limitations that our partners are willing to abide by in the agreement, but also we're limited by the guidelines and the agreements that the Department of Housing and Community Development Broadband Office are willing to include. There hasn't been any pricing regulation incorporated into either the guidelines or any of the agreements between the county and any of our private partners, or DHCD, any of our private partners. Is that something to consider? It might be. As affordability has become a broader issue, it is definitely something that we're concerned with. So there might be some room to incorporate that. I will say at the federal level, there is some effort to address affordability. At the local level here in the county, there is efforts to address affordability. And at the provider level, there are issues to address affordability. Any of you that are having any difficulty affording broadband, you should feel free to reach out to us. It's in our name, broadband, accessibility, and affordability. So email us, BAAO@almarl.org if you have any concerns about being able to afford your broadband costs now or in the future. The FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, has a program known as the Affordable Connectivity Program. Provides up to $30 a month for broadband, monthly broadband costs. And there's also a program here in the county that we have rolled out. Currently, we have partners in primarily the development area. So it doesn't apply to this. We would love to see it apply in the future. We do know, however, that Brightspeed for any ACP eligible household is putting another $30 on the table to help with costs, which if you are eligible for ACP, and again, we're happy to discuss it offline, their $30 plus the federal government's $30 brings you to zero on that 200 megabit per second plan. That doesn't cover everybody. That doesn't cover everybody's needs. And so we want to take that into account. The other thing I wanted to cover is actually the difference in the technology. There is absolutely no doubt that, one second. There is absolutely no doubt that the technological differences between the existing DSL network and the fiber network are going to be a complete phase shift when it comes to reliability and speeds. But more important than bandwidth, latency. And that is actually the time it takes for your signal to reach wherever it was supposed to go. All of those are absolutely in favor of fiber. The reason that we're concerned, the reason that we have issues with this price increase is because it doesn't comport with a good faith effort to make sure that this project meets success by reaching that 50% threshold. And so we want you guys to sign up. We are eager for people to have the opportunity to sign up, but we also want people to sign up. That said, if you have concerns and you are thinking that you might not sign up, that is absolutely something that you should take seriously. And if you want to talk to us about it, you're always welcome to reach out to us, baao@albemarle.org. With that, we do appreciate all of the questions that are continuing to come in. We're going to move forward with the rest of the presentation, and then we will open it back up to some additional Q&A. So thank you guys so much for those questions. Thank you, Rich and Nancy, for tackling those. We are rapidly approaching the completion of the project. As we mentioned, this project received an extension in October from its original end date of December 5th to March 31st, which is just a few short weeks away. Installations are going to continue beyond that. So a couple of things to cover here. If you've never been on these calls before, if somebody forwarded you an email and said, hey, you should get on this, hey, there's something coming, email us, baao@albemarle.org, and we can catch you up. These webinars have been recorded. The ordering and installation process is recorded in our past webinars. We will run through it again today, but since we're closing out the construction phase, which is the main purpose behind these webinars, and is to get you guys the communication that you need as it changes. Well, it's not going to change anymore. We are going to end these webinars, and we're going to transition our website to focus entirely on the installation and ordering processes. So that way, everybody's going to know exactly what they need to do to get service. But if you've never been on this call before, again, email us. We'll include you in the list. As the project's complete and as orders can be placed, we're going to email the people that have signed up for our list. So let them know that they can place orders. Within those project areas, we have 3 more. That's the Stony Point, and then the Campbell and Sismont, which I'm just bundling them all together as the Stony Point and Keswick project areas. They remain under construction. We don't have any news today unless Rich wants to pipe up about orders being able to be placed in any of those areas. I've got, it sounds like we're very close. And again, once those construction operations are completed, our office, will email you all to let you know that you can place orders. And to just briefly review those construction operations, what we're talking about there, it's real construction work, it's digging. And so the guys are out there digging somewhere, even if they're not in your neighborhood, they're digging somewhere. But even after the digging is done, they need to verify each component that was installed. And if anything's not working, not up to snuff, they have to rip it back out of the ground and start over with that piece. So be patient. They're moving. The Stony Point and Keswick tranches have been released. So the breakdowns of which people are in different groups have been released. We did share the Stony Point area with you all. If you're in the Stony Point area, if you designated that in your when you signed up for our emails, we sent you all a street list. If you haven't seen it, if you don't know what I'm talking about, email me, baao@albemarle.org. There were some areas that were originally included in this project, that were originally included in our expectations and plans for this project that are no longer on the list. And there is continued discussions about how that happened and what we can do to remedy it if there's anything that specifically that needs to be done. And we are working to determine that. So if you received that Stony Point tranche list, so the list of all the streets and all the addresses and all the street ranges, and you don't see yours on there, email me. If you've already emailed me, we know, and we're looking at it, and we're waiting until we can give you a final determination. It's possible you're going to be in a different project. It's possible that we're going to find a different solution for you. Either way, we are going to keep an eye on this for you guys for a long time, to make sure that we have an exact determination of who is in the project and who is out. If you're in the Keswick, that's the Campbell and Cobham project areas, we are getting ready to send you guys street lists. Rich has promised me some tranche lists, and as soon as I have them, I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to review them, put together some ranges, and send them out to you guys. It's a link to a file on our servers. We're not leaving this out publicly because we want to make sure that people's privacy is respected and that there's not just a list of addresses out there for everybody to take a look at. So you will receive that link through the emails that we send out. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Rich and Nancy to share with us more about the project, run through the ordering and installation process.
Thanks, Jason. If you go ahead and move ahead a slide, I'm going to I guess here's what I'm thinking on this is we've got some of the prior webinars that are online. So I would tell folks, if you are some point in the future after March 10th looking at this, we're not going to spend quite as much time because we're running out of time on some of this other stuff. And you may want to go back and look at the last webinar from the February timeframe and go back and look at that where we spent more time on that. And I think that would be helpful for you if you're not on with us live today. Want to go ahead to the next one, Jason? So again, this is just a kind of a summary of the projects that we have done so far. And of course, you see the two in the northeast section that are still under construction. Move to the next one if you would, Jason. Thanks. And this is a slide that we used earlier. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because this is kind of like getting you up to where we are now. So a lot of this doesn't apply anymore, but this is what the project, has been going through for the last probably year and a half with from the beginning to the end. We're at the second from the last dot there, placing, splicing, and turning up. And I guess for those of you that are in these areas that are yet to be launched, that turning up is probably the place where I probably want to just spend just a minute. So if you live in Eastham, for instance, you're probably not seeing a lot going on out there. It's like, all right, well, what's going on? I don't see anything happening. That's because everything has pretty much been done there. All the construction work has been done. And then what we do is we have a final period of testing where they're actually testing the light signal on all of the different lines to make sure that everything is working, making sure that our records match what we know is out in the ground. And all of that gets done before we actually launch the facility and say that folks can start placing orders. So if you're not seeing anything out there, that's actually a very good sign that we're at the very, very end. Now I say this, we had one project area that we did down in the Rosemont where sure enough, the day before we're finishing up just the last bit of testing and they found a bad fiber. And so we had to go back and do some work there and get that one fiber replaced. Wasn't really anticipated, but something happened and we had to go ahead and did that. So that was a very last minute delay that got made, but we didn't want to launch until we're fully ready. I was hoping to have very, very good news on Eastham. I checked my email just before we got on the call here. We're that close. So I'll give you, I've been really big about saying I'm not giving out launch dates anymore because if we don't make them, you get a lot of disappointed people, and I'm not happy with that either. So we're trying, as soon as we know something is really, really close to launching, I'm kind of letting the broadband office know. And then as soon as it launches, we let them know and they can get the word out to you so that you can get your orders put in. The next piece after that, I always want to talk about a little bit though, is the property restoration. So when the folks are out there doing the work in your property, there are going to be times when they have to dig a pothole to look for a local facility, maybe a private facility that's on your land that we need to go and check and be sure we're not going to hit it. And I've seen this where they did a pothole and then for whatever reason they didn't put some grass seed and some straw over the top of it, whatever they need to do to repair it. And but if you catch that, they should be doing that. They know to do that. If you catch that they didn't do it, that they overlooked it, and they're there, grab them and tell them. They'll do it. And if you notice the next day that there's a problem and there's something that you don't think that was restored correctly, just get the word to the broadband office. They get to the word to us, and we actually track those and make sure that we have crews that come out and get that property restoration done. If there's some issue at the end, I don't know if we've actually seen one, maybe we've seen one or two of these where someone wasn't happy with the ultimate conclusion. There's a claims process that we have in place as well. But I'm thinking, the folks out there, for those of you that have dealt with our techs out there and the contractors, I think one of the things that I hear a lot is that the folks that they actually deal with on the ground, not the people that you call into, but the folks you deal with on the ground are really, really conscientious people and want to make sure that they walk away and you're happy with the service that they got in. I've been on a bunch of service calls myself, and I've always been impressed that that the homeowner there is usually real happy with the work that the techs have done for them. Next slide, Jason, please. So this I'm going to leave on here just for a second. I'm not going to read through this, but this is good if you're watching the webinar later. So back in October, November timeframe, when I came on board, we put into place a corrective action plan. And that corrective action plan kind of sets out what all the different steps are, what we do, what you're able to do. And so this is a good document if you're having an issue and you kind of want to understand what our process is. This goes through and discusses the process in pretty good detail for us. Jason, if you want to move on. And again, this is kind of the overall process. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here, except for, I guess I'll talk about locates will be the one that probably is key for us since we're now at the installation point. So up at the top, these were the early steps that we've kind of already, that we're going through now, right? As soon as we are ready, construction is completed, all the testing has been done. We update our systems with the addresses, and that's when we notify. Next block is we notify the community, that's Jason and Mike, that we're ready to go with the next steps. You then place your order and get an install date. And again, I spent a minute on this. Ideally, we would like to get you up and running when we come out there. That's the goal, is to get you up and running right away with a temporary line. If you do not want a temporary line for whatever reason, all you got to do is tell us, and it's not a problem at all. We'll come back and we'll just do a buried drop for you further down the line, and you won't have a temp up there. We were having a very big problem getting temps buried, and as I mentioned earlier in the call, I mean, the good news is the number of orders is really, really good. The bad news is the number of orders is really, really good. And there's a lot of lines out there. And so we had to bring in extra crews. I mentioned this at a lot more money to come in and get those lines buried. We know that we were behind it. We were behind the power curve on this and badly behind the power curve. And so that's why we brought on additional crews. The reports I'm getting is that things are getting done much, much faster now. But again, we'll try and get you set up with a temp and get you up and running right then and there. If we can't, there are some times when we can't put a temp in, even though you would like to, we would like to, we can't do it. So if it's crossing your neighbor's yard, generally, we don't have an easement there, we're not going to do it. We're going to need to get some permission. We're going to have to do a bore. We're going to have to do something. It gets a little more complicated on things like driveways. So as a general rule, we don't like to put a temp over a driveway, especially if there's a lot of traffic on it. But if you're out there, and you'll be out there with our tech, because they'll be there the day that the install, you'll be there too. If you say to that tech, look, there's only one car, it doesn't drive over this fiber, and the fiber isn't like a piece of glass sitting on the ground that's going to break. Those things are pretty well protected. But if you've got a lot of really coarse gravel there, that tech may tell you, you know what, that line's only going to last a week and then it's going to get cut. I can't in good conscience put a temp up for you. You're going to have to wait and do a buried drop. So anyway, there's a little wiggle room there, a little room where you can negotiate with the tech to say, hey, look, I really, really want the service. If worst comes to worst, if we put a temp down and you wind up driving over it and breaking the temp, we'll come out, we'll put another temp in, or we'll come out and say, okay, well, the temp didn't work. We're gonna have to wait and put on a buried drop for you. But a lot of room for you there to talk with the techs, find out what you're both comfortable with in your individual situation. That tech, when he leaves, they'll install the fiber, and the last thing that they'll do, and they'll have you look at it, they'll put their meter on there and they'll run the speed test, and they'll show you what kind of speeds you're getting both on the upload and the download. And they'll show it to you right on a screen that they've got, so you can see what kind of speed is going on there. The place I want to spend just a little bit of time here, and I know we're grossly over where we should be, but and that's locates. So the general rule in Virginia is if you're going to dig, you have got to call. It used to be called Miss Utility. It's Virginia 811 is the actual name of the organization. Whoever's going to be doing the digging needs to call in, and they get a ticket issued, and that ticket says, it's a request for a locate, and then the companies that have facilities in that area are notified, and they have to come out and mark their facilities, or their contractor comes out and does a utility locate. So that's the paint that you see on the ground, the flags that you see on the ground. And that gives everybody the clearance to know, and then the system tells the excavator, all clear, go ahead and do your digging. And they have up to, a company has up to 3 days to do those locates. So once you see the paint on the ground, you could see paint for a couple days because maybe we're still waiting on somebody else to make a marking of those facilities. Now, that brings us to the other piece of that is private utilities. We know a lot of you have your own private utilities out there. So what we've been recommending is we don't like to cut your private utilities. So if you know you have private utilities out there, it's probably not a bad idea to go ahead and get those things located so that we know where they are and we don't hit them. And probably the best way to do that is to have somebody come out and put flags up. Because if you put paint on the ground over a period of time, that paint's going to go away or you get a big rainstorm. So that's what we've been recommending. The county, I think, has got some connections with some references, not endorsements necessarily, but just some references as to companies that will do those. And a great suggestion that I've seen some communities do is kind of all get together, hire one person to come out and do locates for the whole community in there. It lowers your costs for everybody to get that done. Jason, do you want to add anything on that or should I just move on?
We can keep going as long as
Okay.
everybody knows. If you've got questions about any of this at any point in time, everybody knows the email baao@albemarle.org.
And then, so now you've got a temp line in there, or you didn't, or we couldn't put a temp in. So the next step is going to be the buried drop, where they'll come in and they'll trench in the drop. Normally, they're able to just trench the line in. It goes in, doesn't go in very deep. We make like a slice in the yard. The line goes down, gets covered up, and then your drop is in good shape. There's some instances where it gets disconnected and we put a different line in, but for the most part, folks are able to get those drops buried. Again, I think we're doing much better on getting those things taken care of in a timely manner with more crews that have been coming in. But on the other hand, as soon as these other areas start launching, there's going to be a lot of those temp drops that get ordered as well. And then I mentioned property restoration at the end. And Jason, I think that may do it for me. We're moving over to order installation or ordering process.
Yeah, and I think that we're going to go ahead and hold off on that. Just move to our Q&A. I appreciate, Nancy, your time.
Yep.
We've got those slides. We'll have those slides posted. The long and the short of it is you go to put up that first slide right there at the top. q.brightspeed.com is what's going to get you to the right place to place your order. The big thing to always point out, if you are a current Brightspeed DSL customer, there's a special box on this page right here when you're signing up. Make sure to check that. It's going to steer you slightly differently, but we've had some people who have had some issues with their service not transferring properly, and so we want to avoid that as much as possible. So and again, you're going to find out about being able to place your order in those new tranches. So Stony Point, Sismont, Campbell, Cobham, all those areas. You'll get an email from me. I'll be letting you know that you're ready to go. And if you're a current customer, go ahead and make sure to click yes there to make sure that your service gets transferred and everything happens the way it's supposed to. If at any point in time you have any issues with that, just reach out to us, baao@albemarle.org. We're going to hop into our questions. And I'm going to start with one that I've seen hitting a few times. So there's some people that are trying to go ahead and check to see if they can place orders right now for the Stony Point area. And they're seeing a date pop up. It says fiber internet is scheduled to be available at your address on May 2nd. So many of you haven't been on all 16 of these calls. I can say that I've been on 15 of them. I missed one. And so this is actually sort of the reemergence of an old issue. The system that they're using is originally designed for greenfield developments. And what that means is there's generally just a window in a greenfield development. A greenfield development is when you're just putting into an empty spot. So you're going to put service into a place that doesn't exist, a new development. And that new neighborhood is just about ready to move people in. And so Brightspeed's going to send them all an email that have signed up for interest and that are considering, and they're going to say, hey, you can sign up in a few months as just a heads up. and that way they can go ahead and place their orders. And when they move in, their house has fiber internet. That's kind of a kludge in this case. It's being put to use for this project. Is being put to use for not a greenfield development. And what that means is, if you see that date, May 2nd, it's a standard 60-day window from a different date. So somebody at Brightspeed set a target date for likely March 1st for when they wanted to be able to launch that area. And the system has just defaulted to that 60-day window. We will email you and let you know the moment that orders can be placed. So if you see May 2nd, ignore it. That is a placeholder date that is built into their marketing system, and it will change. And we will let you know when. The other question that we've seen a couple of times is three times, going to that, and I wish I hadn't stopped the share, but going to that slide about the pricing, it states that there are free installations for the 500 and the gig plan, but it doesn't say the same thing for 200 megabit plan. So for people that are in the 200 megabyte plan that are considering it, are they going to be charged an installation fee?
The answer is, wait for Nancy to chime in. The answer is no. It's interesting. I had noticed, and thanks for noticing the difference there. There might be a difference if you're outside this VATI project, and Nancy will have to look at that, but that doesn't matter for you all. Our plan here goes under the VATI guidelines, so everything is the same, just as it's been all along with VATI. We'll do all the installation. That's part of the contract that we have. The up to 650 feet that we cover for free. So yeah, so those installations will not cost you anything.
Yep. And I wanted to, I was remiss, we do have one additional affordability option, and that is something called leak app. And now that I'm saying it, I realize no, it's not eligible for this project, and so I'm gonna stop saying it. But if you have concerns about being able to afford any installation costs, feel free to reach out to us. At the very least, we can talk about it. We can see what can be done. But just bear in mind, as far as this project goes, the 200 meg plan does not change the installation fees or structures. It's still just going to be the 650 feet or 1500 threshold. So
it also does. Was the question about the tech install or about?
Nancy, I didn't realize this, but if you go back and look at that pricing slide, it says professional installation included, but it only says that for the mid-level tier and the high tier. It doesn't, that phrase isn't on there for the 200, which just seems odd that it wouldn't have been included there.
Yeah, it is no charge. It's free at this time. I'm looking at an order right now. It's no charge. Perfect.
And a question that I feel hesitant to offer, but I will put it out there as it's been asked several times. Rich, you brought up that the residents should feel free to reach higher levels at Brightspeed. And if you'd like this time to offer how they can contact higher levels, I will say, as serving as the public liaison for this project, if people have concerns, they are welcome to email us at bao@albemarle.org, and we will pass it along to Brightspeed. But our policy is to not share contact information with anyone at Brightspeed. We've discussed that. You can go back several webinars ago, and you can hear why. But Rich, do you want to say anything?
So my advice was, let me see. I guess I'm probably along the same line that Jason is. My official response would be, there's a process and we've gone through the process. But my personal and, my personal thought on that, and it's clearly personal, it's not a Brightspeed opinion, is when I don't like the way something's going, I go to the top. And I think if you do a quick little bit of research, you can find some names and numbers for people at the top of any company, and you're always welcome. You're always welcome to do that. I've done that with other situations myself, and I know there are a lot of people on here that are very capable of doing that. That's about all I can say.
A question regarding the buried drops. So are we still looking at a 60-day window to go from temp lines to buried drops?
So the latest numbers that I've seen look much better than that. I think they're more approaching the 14 days at this point. But again, it's all a matter of the cycle. So right now we're working on clearing out, the Rosemont area, Box Holly areas that we have. So I think a lot of it's going to depend as these new areas launch, how many orders come in, how many of them are temp lines, how many of them are buried lines. But we've got lots of crews working these still because frankly, we brought them on to get ourselves caught up. I've been trying to tell people that I think, giving people a worst case scenario. So if you know, for instance, that you don't want to take any risk of a 60-day temp line, then you probably should just go ahead and say, put me on the buried drop list. And I know we're getting to the point now where grass is coming back up again. People are going to want to mow, and you may not want a temp up there. So I use 60 as the outside. I think we're doing much better than that. But like I said, if a whole boatload of orders come in, as soon as Eastham launches and the Stony Point and Bell Store tranches launch, it'll slow us down a bit again as we're trying to work to get caught up.
Great, I appreciate that. An aside, really. If you need to have your connection serviced, now we've had a separate line, a separate phone number for residents on this project to dial, and I can't find it in my email right now. Richard, do you have that handy?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Can you ask what was that? What number?
I think it was the 833 at the end.
Our number is 833-692-7773.
And again, once you are a customer on the fiber network, I think I mentioned this like in the January webinar. A lot of changes have been happening since Brightspeed took over in October. All new systems, all new company, still relying in part on some of the old CenturyLink systems. But we're trying to do is make as many of these changes as quickly as we can. One of them was we should be able to identify you if your number is what you use to order with, and then get you to the right place right away, so that you're not going through voicemail hell trying to get to the right place.
I appreciate that. Now we've just got a few more questions and I think they're actually all pointing at us on the county side. The first is, what if the 50% target is not reached? So that is actually something that we have already reached out to discuss these changes with the Department of Housing and Community Development's broadband office, made them aware of our concerns, made them aware of our opposition to the price increase. And we don't know, actually. That is something that the broadband office has within its prerogative to make a determination. What you don't need to worry about is any notion that this project won't proceed or be completed. The expectation remains that this project will be completed. Anybody that falls within the project area will receive the service that they are promised. It is more something that happens on the back end that impacts both the potentially the state's portion of this agreement, but it also could impact future agreements. So if your concern is whether you're going to get service, absolutely do not worry. If you're included in this project, then you're all set.
Just one quick thing on that. The state does have a process for making sure people are hitting their take rate. And one of the things we'll have to do, if the take rate is not moving in the right direction, continues to improve is the goal. And that's a shared goal. If DHCD, the state department, doesn't see that, then we have to work, the broadband office has to work with Brightspeed and come up with a plan that the state approves. So that plan, that's what we don't know about until they actually get to the point where they're going to work with us to help us develop a plan, or require us to develop a plan.
Yeah,
we don't want to be there. I mean, Rich and I definitely don't want to be in a situation where
that target's a year out.
Yeah.
But not to say that we're going to wait and see, well, we're at a year and we didn't make it. I mean, we'll know as these new areas launch what the take rate is looking like. And, you know, if it's 10%, then we know that there's an issue, and then we're going to go back and look at the issue. And I can tell you up front, probably the first thing we're going to do is a much more robust marketing campaign, which is what I'm pushing for already for us to do, to be able to get the word out to folks with mailings, et cetera, so that folks know that the service is available.
Right. And then the other question is, and I won't deign to talk competitors on the call, but the question amounts to, why is there no competition? I'd like to point everybody, and if you want me to send you the link, I can, because it's a big meeting. Email me, obviously, bao@albemarle.org. We had the opportunity to present before the school board on February 9th. The request was made by the school board to just present what we've been up to and to share what we're doing. We had a chance to share a lot of, in broad strokes, a lot of what we've done and a lot of what we're looking to do. And the reality is that, and everybody knows this, competition improves prices, it improves reliability, and it improves resilience. All of those things, and some of those might be distinctions without a difference, but all those things are priorities that we have, is to make sure that residents have the best price that they can possibly receive and the best networks that they can possibly receive. And that is always enhanced by competition. The reality is we can't force anybody to do anything. So we can't force you all to sign up for this service. We can't force any competitor, any network to do anything that they're not interested in doing. We can, however, provide incentives and prioritize competition as something that is one of our goals, and that we work towards. So with that in mind, there is at present no plan for any additional funding from the county or the state to go towards expanding the broadband footprint of a different provider into this area. That doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities for providers at their own will to move in that direction. If you ever have any questions about what your options are, feel free to reach out to us at the email. You all know, you've heard it so many times across the last 16 months. One more question coming in. The address for Q ordering, it is www. I'm typing it in while I'm telling it to you. www.q.brightspeed.com. And again, you can find, we can email you those slides. You can find the prior webinars and find that information. And if you email me, I'm happy to share today's slides, and they'll be posted on our website very soon. And a question for Mr. German that just came in. Will Brightspeed lease its fiber to other providers? Just curious. Rich, do you want to try to tackle that one?
Oh, I have no idea whether we have wholesale on any of this or not. Nancy, have you got any thoughts on that?
I don't know the answer to that. Sorry.
It's fiber to other providers. Yeah, I don't know anything. I honestly don't know anything about the wholesale business that we have, and I guess I'm thinking, are you talking dark fiber? Are you talking fiber? Actually, the fiber, the drops, you know, like to a CLEC that would provide service to an individual customer, or is this more middle mile stuff? So we probably need to know more. If you email the question to Jason, Jason, what's your address again? If you email Jason, I'll be glad to take a look at that and let you know what things look like on wholesale. As I think about it, I'm pretty sure that we're not doing something like the old CLEC business, which is like leasing out our drops to a competitive phone company like we used to do in the old days. I don't think we're doing that for fiber, but on the business opportunity, I think there are wholesale opportunities.
Great. All right. Well, everybody, it has been an adventure these last 16 months. I want to thank Rich and Nancy and Heather, and then from webinars past, Trish and Dolores and Steve for joining us across, I mean, at least 20 hours worth of webinars. I want to thank everybody for all of the questions over the last 16 months. I think we broke a record today with 83 questions asked, and just truly grateful to be able to help usher in this project and help people get connected. So thank you all for your time, for your attention on this. I'm going to pull that Q&A. The videos, when the video is going to get uploaded, and we will go ahead and email out once it's available. We've been having some troubles with the distribution, but the video will get uploaded likely this afternoon. And then the next ABA meeting. So the question also, will ABA create a written report on the info in this session? As I mentioned, our website for the project right now, it's focused on construction. We're going to transition that to just focusing on the ordering and installation process, and that will be available on the website. Any other concerns that you might have, if you'd like to attend the ABA meeting, it's this month. It's on Tuesday, March 21st at 5 o'clock. You can go to the Albemarle County Office Building at room 240. I'm sorry, 241, or you can join via Zoom, and there are links in the community calendar on the albemarle.org website. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Nancy. Mike.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. All right, all. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.